Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. It is Mock Draft Monday. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. So we're taking a look at another 2023 NFL mock draft. However, I want to be clear. We're talking more about prospects than team fits. You see the teams on the top left of your screen. Ignore those. We're talking prospects, some of the favorite prospects we've liked in this class so far. And I just want to say thank you guys for all the support. And if you do like the content, you do like talking about the NFL draft, you like talking college football, you like talking football in general, go subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all the support. Let's get into this first round draft. Still, Will Anderson, best player in college football. I feel like this should kind of be a little bit of a no-brainer here.
It's my opinion. No one really dominated the way he did last year. So, yeah, it's hard to argue. He's just so good.
Yeah,
even
now will he
good
be
tackles couldn't touch him.
Will he be the first pick overall? Probably not. Probably going to be either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Who we have next? Let's talk a little bit about Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Who's your QB1 as we kind of start this process off?
I have Bryce Young, and it's primarily for the fact that in the big moments, he's played really good football. And not that Stroud hasn't. It's not like Stroud was bad against Michigan or Oregon, but I wouldn't say those were his best games, right? So I think as of right now, just in terms of just like what that like intangible, whatever you call it about quarterbacks, like you just trust this guy. I guess Bryce Young has a little bit more of it for me now, but if Stroud puts together a really good year, I mean, there's parts of his game that might be more attractive
that the NFL will like,
and the arm and all that he kind of possesses. So I think it's really close. I just give a slight edge.
10 months from now, there will be a massive conversation revolving around Bryce Young and his size. It happens every year like clockwork. Kyler Murray got that business. Bryce Young will certainly get that business. I mean, he is – the thing with it, like with Bryce Young is he's not like – he's Kyler Murray's height, but he's also like very, very small, like undersized, underweight. I saw a video of him playing like a pickup basketball game with no pads on, and he looks tiny. And so that's definitely going to be a problem.
No, he doesn't get hit, though. I wouldn't say, like, if you kind of watch his games, he really stays out of trouble. He's
very good at protecting the body.
He's good in the pocket where he's not getting pasted. So I think he does an okay job managing it. But, of course, it's like just like clockwork teams do he's too short, he's got too small hands, like all these.
I guarantee the hand size will be a problem too. If you're that short, you probably don't have that big of hands. So we'll see about that. Number 4, Jalen Carter. I mean, after Will Anderson, he is probably the next best player on defense, maybe even in the country. Guys like Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Trayvon Walker, they all got buzz. Jalen Carter might have been the first overall draft. Him and Will Anderson could have been the first overall draft picks this year. I mean, in terms of getting after the passer from an interior spot like Jalen Carter, it's disgusting. And he's been doing it since he's been 18 as a true freshman. And this guy is really special. I think he's the 4th best prospect kind of after Will Anderson and the 2 QBs.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, just a much better athlete certainly than Jordan Davis probably, and maybe a little bit than Devontae Wyatt. He just looked like he maybe splits the difference between the space eater, but not an undersized defensive tackle by any means. Just a good, athletic, big.
And the biggest thing that the NFL teams are going to love, and kind of the knocks that Jordan Davis had, is like, how are you going to get after the passer? Like, you don't have those questions. Jalen Carter is like the most efficient pass rusher in the country from the interior defensive line spot. Next 2 picks, wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. This was a little contested by me and you. I had Jaxon Smith-Njigba as my wide receiver number 1. You saw him in the Rose Bowl just put up disgusting numbers. I like a lot of his game. Him and Kayshon Boutte are very close. Kayshon Boutte gives me big-time A.J. Brown vibes. He works the middle of the field extremely well. I think he's faster than most people give him credit for. Like, he runs away from defenders in space as well. I would like to see him more in like a potent offense. I mean, no doubt there's Jaxon Smith-Njigba, he's putting up these monster stats in one of the most efficient offenses. Kayshon Boutte in the 6 games he plays was putting up crazy numbers, but in an offense that just really wasn't that explosive. What is your early feel on these 2 wide receivers who are pretty clear wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2?
Yeah, I mean, I probably have Boutte just a little higher just because it seems like maybe the superior athlete, just bigger, really, probably similar athletically, but just Boutte is doing it at a much bigger size. But this is it's razor tight. Like in Njigba, Smith-Njigba just did everything right. It seemed like a little bit Olave-like, just didn't make mistakes, didn't drop balls. He's really good control of what he's doing on the field. But
body control.
Boutte's just kind of the explosive athlete, big play guy, I think. But he also, I think he can do the other stuff. So
I think there might be a little element of like, is Jaxon Smith-Njigba only a slot guy? That will hurt his stock if NFL teams. I don't necessarily agree with it, but if NFL
feels
NFL
like
teams,
a take everyone's gonna have. That's
because that's where he primarily did his work. Obviously with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, kind of the boundary receivers.
Yeah, but when those two were not playing at various points of the year, notably the Rose Bowl, he was playing on the edge and dominating there too. So it's not like I think he showed he can do both, honestly. But I'm sure the take will be out there.
Yeah, you know it will. The next two I have are the Clemson defensive linemen. And I have Myles Murphy edging out Bryan Breese. It's really close. Myles Murphy, he's one of the few guys that I've watched a lot of film on kind of coming into the summer. His twitch off the line of scrimmage is insane. He has a deep tool bag of pass rush moves, but I think he can work on that. But he kind of checks the box in like the two things that you want to see. Can he win around?
He also just feels like a bigger, got really good size for the way he can move athletically.
Oh, yeah, 272 pounds, I think he is. But the twitch off the line of scrimmage, the ability to just run around tackles and get the edge is insane. But he also, like, when tackles have to overcompensate for that, he'll go right through. He's kind of – I think he'll be a top 5 pick. He's one of the guys that I might be a little higher on than consensus because I love his game. And Bryan Breese, obviously coming off the ACL injury, he's another guy that it's really rare to see 18-year-olds come in and dominate grown men kind of inside on the defensive line. Bryan Breese did that. I mean, ragdolling 22-year-olds. He's going to be a top 10 pick.
He's just on a different level, strength, athleticism. He's just – those guys are really hard to deal with, I think. And he certainly seems like he's got that. And I don't worry so much about the ACL. It's like not – again, I say it again, not like the 70s guys come back from it all the time.
Especially if you're a freak like Bryan Breese. No doubt he's coming back. And he is.
Yeah, like an Adrian Peterson type. If you're that athlete, it's like you shouldn't be a problem.
Next two guys we have, Kelee Ringo, Eli Ricks, 2 cornerbacks in the SEC. One, obviously, Bama, and then Kelee Ringo from Georgia. Are these the guys who are 2 tight guys, too? I think they're cornerback 1, cornerback 2 in the class. I gave Ringo the edge just because I kind of like the tools he has. He's 6'2". He's got some good length to him. I know you have some concerns about kind of the long speed. Got beat vertically a little bit. But I do think Ringo, if I'm projecting who's going to be cornerback 1, I think Ringo has a little bit more tools. And then Eli Ricks is just obviously a nails cornerback who is not bad in his own right. He's bouncing around a little to Bama, and that's no doubt going to help him. But that's kind of my early take on the corner.
The problem with Ringo is you saw him getting beat a little bit up top. And I don't know that he's got the long speed to be that true number 1 with like no safety help kind of guy. Which I think, again, when you're splitting hairs a little bit with a guy like Eli Ricks, who's really good in his own right, but I think might have the athleticism to blossom into that true number 1. Leave him alone. Don't think about him.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can do that with Ringo because when he played with the fast wideouts, whether that was at Tennessee or whether it was at Alabama, you saw some moments where
they got the best of him.
You could get by him, and that's the only knock because he's got for being as big as he is, he's pretty smooth and he stays with guys, and obviously he's a playmaker. That's probably one of his big attributes, if you will. But I don't know that again when you're splitting them so close to 2 really good players. I think those are kind of the things for me.
And when you're talking about taking a quarterback in the top 10, like you saw Sauce Gardner, like you saw Derek Stingley, that's a lot of the questions are like, do you have that long speed to match up with the elite wide receivers? Because you're taking a cornerback in the top 10, they need to be an eraser. It's like a guy like Jalen Ramsey. You throw out on a wide receiver, throw him out on the side of the football field, you don't have to worry about that side. That's kind of what you want in a top 10 cornerback. If you do have concerns with Ringo, I hope he answers those questions, and we'll see if he answers those questions this year. Number 11, Peter Skronski. So he's a guy that we've talked about. I haven't gotten a ton of film on him. I watched a little of him this afternoon against Wisconsin. He is nails. You're going to watch him against Wisconsin tonight. The one problem I saw is, and I don't know if this is his fault or just Northwestern's fault, is like the picking up stunts and blitzes seem to be a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, that's always hard. I feel like you need two good players on one side. Northwestern, just where they are at right now, it seems like they don't have a ton of talent around them. So,
yeah, but he's very athletic. He's got great feet to mirror defenders like in the pass rush. But he also just is kind of a road grader against the run. I mean, when in those down blocks,
he's Northwestern.
Yeah, he's kind of the stereotypical Northwestern tackle. It's like, what do you expect? But he's really good. And you obviously saw Rashawn Slater work out so well with the Chargers. I think this guy's going to be another top 15 pick. I don't know if he's as athletically gifted as some of those top tackles we saw this year, and Evan Neal, Charles Cross, Ike Ekwonu, but he's a damn good football player, and I do expect him to be a top 15 pick. Michael Meyer, probably easily the best tight end right now. It's a talented tight end group. Very optimistic on this tight end. We bring up this.
Well, it's weird. It's like a talented group with like a lot of guys who haven't
question marks.
So it's like,
yeah,
he had a lot of talent, but really not a ton of great play at this point. I mean, obviously with a Michael Meyer, you have a guy who not many two-way tight ends coming out and being a two-way block pass kind of guy, and not many of them. Obviously, the recent guys like Kyle Pitts have more split to that wide receiver role, but the thing with Myers, he's so good at both, which I think will make him, like the Gronkowski type weapon, which I know people say it, but
he might not be a top 10 pick because he doesn't have the athletic upside. He's a very good athlete, but not like Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts was a little
He's
different.
Not a burner. I don't think he'll fly on the 40.
But he's a guy that you said inline blocks really well. The one thing you want to see is you want to clean up those drops, because if you're going to be one of those bigger tight ends that works the middle of the field, you can't be dropping footballs. He had a few drops. Was a little bit of a down year for him. His true freshman year was like nuts. Like they don't call him Baby Gronkowski for nothing. He's a really special talent.
Yeah. I think he was gutting a hamstring out all year that looked like it definitely affected him. So I'm looking forward, but again, you turn that freshman tape on, you're like, this is a top 10 player. I feel like that's what I thought when I.
He certainly has the ability to play himself into the top 10. Absolutely. Next guy off the board, Tyler Van Dyke.
It's a little high now for him.
It might be. He's a guy that can certainly solidify him. You'll see him a lot in the top 10 to a quarterback needy team. He only played 7 games for Miami. He looked awesome. My big concern is a little bit less with him, and just the pass catching unit at Miami is dreadful. And so, is he going to be able to cook the way he wants to be able to cook? This quarterback class is going to be interesting. I think CJ Stroud and Bryce Young have solidified that top 2 spot. And then that number 3 spot, I have a few quarterbacks still who are in
Rattler plays a good season. He's immediately number 3, and there's no questions, I think.
I think I agree with that.
He's better than Tyler Van Dyke when Rattler's playing well.
It was just hard for me to put Spencer Rattler ahead of Tyler Van Dyke after this.
Oh, it's impossible right now.
Season.
When you don't start on a team that's not that great, not.
And he looked bad at times. But to kind of finish the quarterback conversation, we have Rattler and Anthony Richardson, who are both talented enough to be a quarterback 3. I think you could throw Will Levis in there. I think you could throw Cameron Ward in there. I think you could throw Hendon Hooker in there, and maybe even a dark horse and Phil Yurkovich. A bunch of guys who are really talented. That's a little bit more what the NFL likes, like Will Levis, Phil Yurkovich.
I think this is just going to be a big shake-up quarterback. Like these guys all are competing for the next few spots. I don't think anyone has.
I like a lot of these prospects from on paper. They have good arms. They're big bodies. They just need to put it on the field. A lot of them, like a guy like Anthony Richardson, hasn't done that yet. Jaron Hall, you could also throw in there. Number 14, I have wide receiver 3, Jordan Addison. He gives me a little Chris Olave vibes. I think Chris Olave was a little bit more explosive with the speed vertically. But Jordan Addison he just keeps chucking. I mean, gets open, catches footballs, is really productive. You don't get the Blitnikoff Award for nothing. He was one of the best wide receivers in the country last year. Excited to see what he can do with a Lincoln Riley offense at USC.
And it'll be interesting because there's one thing. He was in a very down ACC with a top 10 quarterback? He went top 10, right?
Top
Number
20,
10 or
20.
was he 11 or something? I don't know.
Kenny Pickett?
Whenever Kenny Pickett went.
20th to the Steelers.
So Kenny Pickett was obviously people thought he was the best quarterback in the draft as where he went in the draft, but he was in a down ACC.
Yes.
Where on a team with the best quarterback. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what he can do on a team that's probably not going to I don't know. I mean, he's in the Pac-12, so it is what it is there. It's not like that's a great conference, but
yeah,
you get to see him with some bigger teams and play some games and put another good season together because obviously he flashed out. But I don't know. I don't get the sense he's like the same level of player as the top two.
No, I don't think, and I think that's why you see him come off the board almost 10 spots down. But I honestly think he could be kind of get himself in that mention of the wide receiver 1 spot. He's kind of the guy that I'm surprised you're a little down on because he does remind me of your wide receiver 1 in Chris Olave, where he's just a guy that's not flashy, he gets open, catches footballs. Number 15, Connor Galvin, projection. Dill, you watched a little of him. He's 6'7", I think around 315. Like he could fill out the frame. He's kind of a skinny guy. But he just
have skinnier legs.
He just seems he's a good athlete. Like when he's working up to like secondary guys, like he can go block a linebacker. He just seems so off balance. Kind of a loose cannon there.
There seems to be just like needs to be more steady and in play with cleaner technique. But again, I think what you're looking at with him is if he puts a good year together with the attributes he has, being that tall, that long, and he looks really strong just watching him when he gets his hands on guys and he moves guys in the run game and is athletic in the run game. So there's a lot to his game. And if he just plays a clean year, I think, he might work himself up into that number 2 tackle, maybe number 1. We'll see. But
you said it best. I think he's way stronger than he looks. He looks a little off balance, and you think he's going to kind of get moved around. And he just takes guys into stonewalls. Like he's very strong, and so I
don't think it's a strength issue as much as it's just a technique and being balanced and in having clean footwork where he's not crossing his feet or doing other things you probably don't want to see as an offensive tackle.
Yeah, at number 16, Malachi Moore from Alabama, a guy that during the COVID year we absolutely loved. Kind of a down second year, but in terms of a playmaker who can kind of do a lot of different things for a defense, I think Jalen Petrie might be a solid comp for him. He's not an outside cornerback, which probably will hurt his stock. But in terms of like a walk-in safety nickel, he's just all over the field. And I think he is going to be a playmaker there at that Alabama defense. And he's got a year going to draft.
Yeah, but he's also got to put a good year together because obviously you didn't notice him a ton as a sophomore, but as a freshman you saw a lot. So
yeah, I agree. 17, Paris Johnson from Ohio State, a guy that
this is another big year.
He will play tackle, and this is I agree. This is a money year for him. I talk about another guy who kind of looks like you build a tackle in a lab, like former top 10 recruit, has all the attributes, just needs to dominate this year, needs to put those athletic traits on the field.
Yeah, and obviously he was stuck at right guard for at least last year. I don't know if he played much as a freshman, but he's a tackle. That's where if he's going to get picked high, it's going to be to play tackle, not offensive guard. So he really does have to put a good year at tackle together, and he should go really high because again, that's like if you're just making projections, he looks the part.
Number 18, I have Quentin Johnson. He's kind of him and Myles Murphy, kind of my guys that I've seen early. Quentin Johnson's a guy 6'4", needs to be like he's skinny, like 180 something pounds at 6'4" is not great. Not that I care too much about the weight, but in terms of straight line speed is special, and like that's not as rare as you see. Like 6'4". What's special about him is the body control and the ability for him to run smooth routes at 6'4". I mean, create separation, get in and out of his breaks. It's there. He's good after the catch. He's a guy that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. I think a lot of the talk is JSN, Kayshon Boutte, and Jordan Addison. I think Quentin Johnson needs to be talked about a little bit in that top wide receiver tier because this dude can ball.
Yeah, and he's obviously going to have a much more favorable offense to work in with
yes,
Dyke
exactly.
but
that's a great point. Number 19.
He's a guy I need to watch more.
Another one of my guys, Joey Porter Jr., just take one look at him. Very long, can use his arms in length very well. I think he just needs to play a little bit smoother at times. I think that's why he
runs
back.
well, can stick. He was sticking with the Ohio State wideouts and at least on the deep part of the field. So you don't have to worry about his speed, I don't think, at his size. So that's a plus, obviously.
Yeah, and then in terms of cornerbacks, I think there is a little drop off after the guys we talked about at the top. With Kelee Ringo and Eli Ricks, and Clark Phillips from Utah is pretty good. That kid from South Carolina is not bad. They have a TCU kid I like, Antonio Johnson from A&M, decent. But I think none of those guys jumping first round talent. I think Joey Porter is still a guy that I wouldn't take in the first round right now, but I think he's a guy that can play himself into that first round talk. Number 20, I'm kind of shaking things up a little bit. My linebacker 1, Henry To'oTo'o. No.
Yeah, that's just not right.
The ceiling isn't as high as Noah Sewell. I will give you that. But what he brings, I think, in what you're going to see in his second year in that offense, don't forget, this guy came in with the signal caller for this Alabama defense, it's a lot for him to handle. And then Christian Harris was kind of be able to fly around the field. Henry To'oTo'o, in terms of instincts, we had this conversation at dinner today. What's the most important thing in a linebacker's game? It's not your athletic ability. I think some of the best linebackers in the NFL, they're good athletes, but what they're best at is the instincts, the ability to fly around the field and go get the ball carry. And I think Henry To'oTo'o has that, especially that Tennessee tape. The Tennessee tape was special.
He was really good. I mean, he was good last year too. I don't want to say. I just think when you're look, Noah Sewell's been playing the middle linebacker spot at Oregon for 2 years now, starting it as a freshman, and he's bigger and more athletic is kind of my thoughts on it. So I think the probability that he's the number 1 overall pick or number 1 linebacker taken, it seems fairly high to me, just because he's probably played at a slightly higher level, been doing it since he was a freshman, and is a little bit better the athlete. So I don't know.
He definitely has the higher. Yeah, he is the higher. The NFL love him for the size and speed that he plays with is definitely special. I just think Henry To'oTo'o, in terms of being a game manager, the field general, again, a guy I loved last year, Nakobe Dean. Very similar game. They're not the best athletes on the field, but they just are dripping with instincts, and that's I value that a lot at that linebacker spot. Next 2 picks, I have some sleepers. BJ Ojulari, really, really good football player from LSU, really good in the spring game. I think this kid's going to put it all together this year at LSU. That LSU defensive line is going to be disgusting with him, Ali Gay.
They have 2 good edges.
Jacqueline Roy on the inside as well. This LSU defense is going to feast, and I think BJ Ojulari is going to really help him out. And then ZTF, Dill, I know this is kind of your guy. What do you see in ZTF's game that's kind of 22 spot on?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the big issue is he tore his Achilles last year, so he didn't really play much.
Yep.
But the years before, I mean, what you got with him is a bigger, athletic, I mean, it seems like not as fleet of foot as you probably want to see for your top 10 player, but maybe a little bit of Karlaftis to his game where he just looked really physically strong, really solid, and made a lot of plays for that Washington defense. So that's kind of, I don't think he's going to ever work his way to the top 10. I just don't think he's got that.
But people are sleeping hard on him. He's a round 2, round 3 pick. I think this guy certainly can be a first round talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could work his way into the back half of it for sure.
Next, I got Jordan Battle and Brandon Joseph, 2 safeties. I'm kind of lumping the position groups because I need to watch a little bit more of each of them to kind of shake it out. Jordan Battle's a guy that I thought could have been a first-round talent this year if he came out. I don't know how Nick Saban got Henry To'oTo'o and Jordan Battle. I get the Henry To'oTo'o to come back because that dude can be a first-round pick. He just needs to get it together there. I think the first couple of games just wasn't seeing the field that well, kind of calling that Alabama defense, settling into that scheme. Jordan Battle's a guy that would have been a first-round pick. I'm not really sure why he came back, maybe just to go win a title. Nick Saban just got some.
I mean, they should win this year, so that might make sense.
So it makes a lot of sense. And then Brandon Joseph, a guy that it's just hard to be so dominant on such a bad team at Northwestern. But he was a guy
that's a guy who can make some money this year. I think obviously he transferred for a reason, and that's he wants to play big time football, and that just wasn't happening at Northwestern last year. So
12 years.
I mean, if he can just put it together, yeah.
12 months ago, we were talking about him and Kyle Hamilton going neck and neck for safety one. I mean, this guy was gotten so much buzz going into the season. I threw in your guy Siaki Ika from Baylor. I know you love him. You loved what you saw when we were kind of breaking down the Ole Miss Baylor game. What else do you like about him? This was a little bit more of your pick than mine.
Siaki Ika, I don't know why people and he doesn't look the part, I guess.
That's what it is, 100%.
He looks like that old school Sam Adams space eater. But if you watch him play, he penetrates really well. I think he's got a good first step for the size he is, and he's just a bull in a china shop a little bit. He's just when he gets into guys, he's pushing them around and just running right through guards and centers. So I think he can, I just get the feeling he's way better than people think. And yeah, maybe he sheds 20 pounds, which might not be the worst thing in the world for him. If he can keep the same strength and power he plays with, God, he can be really good, I think. I'm almost surprised he's not in the draft now.
He's got some good feet to him. 26 Spencer Rattler, QB 4 off the board again. I think he'll be QB3 when it's all said and done. I couldn't put him at QB3 after last year. He comes to South Carolina. I'm really optimistic about how he's going to mature under Coach Beamer. He has a great relationship. He seems to be happy there. And that South Carolina offense for our college football fans, South Carolina is a sleeper team. I think that Vegas set their win total at 5.5. I think they could win 7-8 games because they're going to be a great team this year on both sides of the ball. We're going to be talking a lot of South Carolina football.
If he puts a good year together, he's right up there in the top 15 for picks, I think.
Yes, I agree. 27 Broderick Jones.
2 years ago.
Broderick Jones, a guy played guard this year.
You didn't get to see him enough because he was stuck behind a really good starting five in a Jamari Sailor. He was playing really good left tackle. But when you saw Broderick Jones come in and play left tackle in the title game in the second half, I mean, he's just got a guy that looks like, yeah, that's a top 10 offensive tackle. Big, lean, long,
athletic,
and he's pounding guys in the run game. So I think he's just he just feels like a guy who's gonna be dominant this year. And he looked good in the spring game. He just looks physically really good. So
talk about another ROC Boy guy, Zion Nelson, a guy that we thought would be a first-round pick last year.
I'll stand by it. This is a top 5 player if he plays like he did as a true sophomore.
Yeah, if he takes the step, he needs to take that next step. We saw him. We watched him together coming in as a true freshman. He's 280 pounds, playing a really good Florida defense back when Florida was good, and he was getting kind of eaten alive. Well, he just progressed so much, kind of get trial by fire, and kind of rose to the occasion. Took a massive step to his true sophomore year, second season. And then just didn't take that step.
Regressed a little bit last year. It was bizarre. Watching him play, because I don't know. I had a sense of how good he was from the year before, and it just didn't seem like he was playing with the same confidence or whatever else you need. But a guy with the tools. I mean, you get him in the right frame of mind and playing really good football. He's top 5 player, I think.
Yep. And then we got Noah Sewell coming in at 29. We did a lot of talk about him.
Low.
Maybe a little low on him. Nolan Smith from Georgia at 30, he's a guy that he's coming back because he probably would have been a late day 2, early day 3 pick. And he wants to be a first round pick. And I also think he was just kind of that heart and soul. A little something of Aiden Hutchinson, not necessarily his game, but who he is in the locker. Think about all the studs on that Georgia team: Kobe Dean, Channington, and the Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Trayvon Walker. Nolan Smith was the heartbeat of that defense. He was the leader of that defense, which is saying a lot when you're in the room with that much talent. And so I think, one, it means a lot for him to come back and go win at Georgia, kind of continue that defensive legacy. But 2, I think he knows he can improve his stock and be that first-round talent that he's.
And he's a guy who's going to need to kind of step in and be dominant, because you didn't see a ton of dominance last year, just at any point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it's just not the player he is. Or we'll see. But obviously, a highly touted guy, and he's got a lot of talent. So he puts a really good year together. He could find himself in the top portion of the draft. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. And then you guys can't see the last 2 picks. We got Anthony Richardson going to the Bucs. Not going to the Bucs.
That's your guy. I knew that's your guy.
Anthony Richardson's my guy in the sense that he has all the – take one look at him on the eyeball test. He reminds you of Cam Newton. I mean, he's really big. He's very athletic. He breaks tackles in the open field. He's very good in the open field. And he has a good arm. It's just kind of erratic. And I think part of it was the pass catching group at Florida last year was horrible. And then
he's got to play with some composure for sure. Because last year, it's like when things were going well, he was awesome and dominating. But obviously, in some of the games where they struggled, he let too many picks, too many bad mistakes. So.
Yeah, but I think part of that was Dan Mullen yanks him out of the game if one thing goes bad. That quarterback really is just never good for a quarterback and trying to get composure, trying to rebound. When you have a head coach breathing down your throat that's going to yank you out of the game every time you miss a throw.
Dan Mullen lost his mind last year.
Dan Mullen lost his goddamn mind, and I said it early. This guy has just lost control of that locker room at the end of 2020, and then last year was just an absolute clown show out of Dan Mullen, an absolute clown show. So Billy Napier comes in, get a little bit of structure in there because Dan Mullen absolutely lost his mind. I think Anthony Richardson can be a top 20 pick, just not with Dan Mullen. He's a clown. Anyways, then the Buffalo Bills. We have to make our selection for the Buffalo Bills to close out this draft. I'm going to go to the big board right here. I'm going to go linebacker. Dill, one of my favorite linebackers here. I'm going to go defense. We're going to go linebacker. We're going to go we're going to go Trenton Simpson. I'm actually happy we did this. Trenton Simpson. I mean, James, as good as James Skronski, as good as Balin Spector were, Trenton Simpson's that modern linebacker. You can play the nickel. You can play rush off the edge. He can get behind the backfield. He can go sideline to sideline. Athletically, he's a freak.
He's going to need to show some good football, though, because you haven't seen enough of that. He's got the talent.
But he played a little bit, but it was kind of hard. I think Dabo didn't want to pull the trigger on replacing a guy like James Skronski and Balin Spector who played so much good football for you at the college level. But in terms of NFL talent, game-breaking talent, Simpson has that. I'm happy that we got to include in the top 32 because he is very special. Again, Austin Flo's another guy at that linebacker spot who can make it happen.
Great.
He just has he's great when he's on the field. He's got to play for sure. Exactly. So that's it for our 2023 first round kind of NFL draft talk, looking at the top 32 prospects on our board. We'll be back next week with Mock Draft Monday again. But until then, we got some summer scouting to do. We got some good guys coming on the show, talk about football teams.